Our next category is photography.
We had some amazing guests on. I so enjoyed talking with Alexa. She has so much knowledge and experience in her field. It was so easy just to carry that conversation and to learn what she does. And the fact that she scuba dives is just so cool. What an amazing person and amazing conversation. I look forward to more. Let's keep this going. Welcome back to another Evolve podcast. We're joined by another guest with us today, Alexa Fernando. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm in Cabo in Baja California Sur, Mexico.
Oh, how is it? It must be so nice there and warm.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know, because I was coming from Canada. It's just I kind of needed to work remotely somewhere else. So
yeah, I mean,
this works.
Great choice on the destination.
Have you been?
No, the farthest, I guess, west I've been is Hawaii, which I can't complain because that's beautiful. No, I would love to go there. I want to travel more, but COVID. But in the future, definitely hoping to. I'll add it to the list, the never-ending list.
Let me know when you do.
Okay, I will. Awesome. So just tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are and what you do and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I'm Alexa and I do photography, content creation, but I also work full-time for a company as a community manager. It's a mix of like social media as well as like creative strategy and just like marketing in general.
Awesome. Wow, that's like my dream future right there.
Yeah, I think it's like once you're just like a creative, it's just like it all kind of works out and like you have to kind of do all of these different things to build something. I don't know.
What was your routine like before COVID and how has that changed into now?
I would say that I was a lot more on the road. I kind of have to a little bit more wary of the places that I go to in terms of that, as well as like, because in my job, I would normally be meeting a lot of people, but now it's like, okay, we can just, it's all kind of, everyone's on Zoom and like, which is great. But sometimes I also just miss that, like the spontaneity of like networking outside and like building that in-person kind of relationship with people. I think that's really what's the thing that has changed. And like, even just like hosting events, a lot of that has changed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself as a photographer. What's your style? What's your favorite creative expression?
I was that girl that loved carrying my camera, as a little girl and then just snapping away. Like I didn't really know what I was doing but it was mostly because I grew up in different cities a lot. So my family moved. So it's just my way of like documenting and sharing it with my friends and family. And I never knew that this was like this thing that, you could, get paid to do it. And when people were like, it's a profession. So I kind of like, that's cool. Yeah, maybe I'll try it out. And then I started out just shooting a lot of events. And then I kind of got into sports for a bit. So I actually did a shot for like Team Canada during, what was this? Like Pan American Games, like in 2015, which is like an amazing experience to kind of be there with like the athletes. And I think that definitely shaped my style into how I shoot today with like other industries. So, and then I kind of made my mark as like a food photographer in Toronto. And, I like work with one of the biggest like hospitality groups there, probably 10 different restaurants and bars. And I was just like their go-to photographer and capturing all of the content that they have. And that's like, I love food because I actually went to culinary school.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
That's it's a mix of like different things that I love, that like from photography and from food, and then combining that and telling those people's stories in the kitchen, for example, and capturing that.
What made you switch from culinary school and coming out of kind of that career path to what you do now?
Everybody was telling me like, Alexa, like I'm sharing all of these stuff on Instagram, and they're like, you should be a cook. You should have your own restaurant. You should have your cookbook. So I have this thing. So actually a lot of my story and life in general is like when people say, you should do this, I'm like, yeah, I can. And I'm going to do it. And I decided to sign up for culinary school. And then once I got into culinary school, it's basically how you imagine it to be, with like kind of like you probably have an idea like it's like a master chef, or it's like
They
give
for
you
sure.
a basket of things, and then you're like, this make a recipe out of it. It's kind of like that. So it's exciting and I loved it, but there was also this part that I discovered that it's like, actually, I don't just love cooking. I actually love the stories of people in the kitchen, and you kind of learn that a dish is not just what's on the plate, but like what happens before it, from like where did you get your produce, or like what are the ingredients and where did that come from, and like or even just the story of the person prepping the food, or like somebody cooking it, or just doing there's all like this kind of like thing that in behind the scenes and in the kitchen that kind of like, I love this is what I want to do, and I feel like there's so much in here that like people need to see and know about. So I was shooting for an event for school, and one of my classmates was in the kitchen, and she looked at me and she was like, I'm not really photogenic, or I'm just cutting onions and it's not that exciting. And I told her, no, I see something else here, and like, you look amazing, you just have to trust me, and then it's gonna come out, like, you're gonna love this. And I snapped a photo and I kind of gave her a preview, and then she was like, she had this look, and then she was just like, wow, like, I really like this. I think that was like one of the first moments that I really like, this is what I want to do. I want to show this side of things, and also like make people appreciate for the things that they do, even just like on the day to day, and give them actually like a different perspective into that. So, and over time, it's like, working with different restaurants and chefs and bartenders even, it's just like, I always tell them like, yeah, I know maybe you're just doing this, but it looks a lot more cooler than you think. So yeah,
that's so cool to hear. And I think that people who kind of have that that creative vision and that eye to see something for what it is, and not necessarily how that other person perceives it. Like you were just saying, like the person who you were photographing was like, this isn't that cool, like it's not that big of a deal, but you have that vision to see what that kind of moment holds. And I think that that's very unique to have. What skills do you believe are really essential to your line of work?
Definitely, you have to be good with people and interpersonal skills. I think as a photographer, you have to be able to read people and understand them, and like, because you're capturing somebody's essence, basically.
Yeah.
You have to bring that out of them. Yeah, they have to be comfortable with you, and you have, they have to trust you, but sometimes you actually have to be open yourself first and be vulnerable, and then so they can see that actually I do feel comfortable with this person, so I'm going to turn my true self into that. And so I think that is the thing that sometimes is like missing, but it's actually so important.
Yeah,
it's not, you're not just like snapping a photo. It's not just like, okay, because in the end it's like it's also, as you said earlier, it's like about that having this vision and this eye, and then like trying to tell that story of that person.
Yeah.
And that comes from empathy and relating, really.
Yeah, that reciprocity is so important. I've had relationship like that, and a friend of mine is a photographer, and it's so much easier for her to be behind the camera and for me to be in front of the camera when there's that kind of understanding and that comfortability. And that is so evident in the photographs that come out later. That's so important to have that understanding and that foundation.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, do you know Platon, like one of the famous like portrait photographers?
I don't think so.
There's this episode on him on Netflix, and like Abstract. It's like it's one of my favorite episodes ever, and I rewatch it several times. But he does like amazing portraits of like world-renowned people, and it's just he tells like the story of how you capture somebody's essence.
Wow.
So I would recommend that.
I'll add it to my Netflix watch later list 100%. Switching focus a little bit. What has been your most challenging project, and how did you approach it, and what did you learn from it?
This year I had a project with Sunkist, and I had signed up a contract to do, I think it was like 4 months with them, like do kind of a post every month and all of that. But because of COVID happening, we kind of had to change all of like our messaging and what we're going to put out, because you want to be aware and not too like insensitive, right?
Yeah.
One of the asks was to be on this Instagram live and to do kind of a cooking show. and it's entitled like When Life Gives You Lemons, which is quite fitting.
Love that.
And then again, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Like I've always wanted to be on an Instagram Live. When you're working with a brand, it's like all the logistics of doing an Instagram Live is a little bit different, and they have a lot of expectations or requirements. So, and I didn't kind of expect that, or when I signed up for it, but we'd have to do like so it's kind of like a TV segment. That's how it kind of ended up becoming. And then you'd have to like, you would know how it's like, okay, we have to do a briefing, we have to do a dry run number 1, dry run number 2. And I was like, hey, this is like taking a lot more time than I thought it would be. And then they would like bring on like everybody. So I think that challenge is doing all of this online and dealing with like a team that's all virtually. Like, you have somebody directing, and then somebody actually would check my mic too. And then it's like, how do I do this? And I think that's where it's just kind of like you need to kind of be aware of, number one, like, what you sign up for, but also like, don't be afraid to ask questions, or just like, actually, this is not working out. Can we do this differently? It's a lot more harder to be open about it virtually, because I feel like you kind of like expect things to work out all the time. But
for sure.
Like, I think for me, that was like the challenge there. But in the end, it was really good. I think you can find it online. Sometimes I sign up for these things, and like, when I'm in the moment, it's like, wait, did I actually do this right?
You're like, what did I sign up for? Literally.
Yeah. And then, but you know what? The dry runs actually really help. Like, even for a moment, like I was like, this is way too much stuff, but you see like the value in that. So I think, I learned things are sometimes complicated because they're there for you to grow from.
Absolutely. And like, we've talked a lot on this podcast with other guests as well. Like, just get started and go. Like, create something. It doesn't matter like what it is. Like, get your foot in the water and then keep going from there. And the importance of, talking to other people, working with other people, and not working alone.
It was like quite appropriate, like with the name of the thing, the title was When Life Gives You Lemons. So
yeah, that's so fitting. That's all of 2020 right there for you. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Great. So on that same page, what advice or techniques would you give someone who is kind of interested in what you do in the field that you're in?
My advice is I only usually have like just 1-2 things. It's just to stay curious.
Love that.
And to don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. We have this in society to like, you have to be this one thing, like you're to identify. There's something about labeling ourselves, which is great. I think that's amazing to like own yourself and like, this is who I am. But I think there's also a point that you're going to be like, actually, do I still want to do that? And I think you shouldn't be afraid to leave all the stuff. Like, even if you've, built something up first, because that's what happened to me. Like, I was this photographer, like for this industry, for a long time. And when I was burned out, I looked at myself, well, I can only do photography. Like, that's it. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know who I am anymore when you tied, yourself to do this. But you have to realize that it's okay. Like, you can also like outgrow things and all of that stuff. So it's okay to start over and to reinvent yourself.
I love that. I've had moments in my life where I feel like I'm on a certain path, and I'm someone who very much is fearful of change. So, someone giving me the advice to like, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself is very intimidating. But looking back, I'm like, oh, like that is exactly what I needed to do in that moment for me to be here now. That is great advice, especially for someone like myself who's like, oh, loves to be in control, but of course, like needs that push sometimes to get where I want to go. In case people want to follow up with you, where can people best find you?
Instagram is always my channel. Yeah, it's at AJ Fernando. That works.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, having this conversation. This was great. And, hopefully if I'm in Cabo anytime soon, I will hit you up.
Sounds great. We can go scuba diving.
Oh, yes, please. I'm all into water sports and anything about that. So
amazing.
Thank you so much, Alexa, for joining us. This was really great. Check out, exclusive to our Instagram, Exposed, where creatives share their most embarrassing moments. You will not regret it. Anyway, thanks. See you back here next week. Welcome back to Evolve. We are so happy to have you here. We have another amazing guest on with us today. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell me a bit about yourself, your background, and what you're doing now.
Well, hello guys. So, my name is Luis Sanchez. You can call me Luigi. So originally from the Dominican Republic. Still, I feel like I'm a New Yorker. I was in New York for 10 years, living in Maryland right now. Currently a designer, photographer, social media manager, a little bit of everything, but mostly photography.
Love that. Love that. So where are you currently working? You said you lived in New York.
No, I was in New York.
Okay,
So I'm currently in Maryland. So I work for a nonprofit organization. So from one of their departments, I do everything from like video for social media, like the website, like pictures, design, flyers, anything that's created for that department. I'm in charge of that. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome. My dream job. No. I know you mentioned you do photography, kind of design, a little bit of everything. Yeah. What is a typical shoot for you? And of the shoots that you've done, what's been a favorite for you?
I think throughout the years, my favorite has become portraits, so especially like couples, like maternity, but mostly capturing like moments of joy, like with intimate portraits. Before I remember when I'm like my first couple of years in New York City, I was actually more into like landscape and like taking pictures of the city, street photography. But throughout the years, I had discovered that capturing like really nice portraits of people can me like this joy and this feeling of like, oh wow, like I make this person look better. And I actually was able to capture like a picture when this person is happy and they look happy and they really like that emotion, what they see. So
yeah, that's great. I know it's interesting always to see like people's like transitions, like what they start out doing and then they find that maybe they still enjoy filming or shooting this certain thing, but capturing that emotion, I've heard from a lot of people too, especially other creatives, like that's what's really important. And that kind of that's what's most fulfilling for them.
And for me, like I still remember people like asking me like, like you're a photographer. Like, where are you mostly shooting? And now a few years ago, I'm shooting like a little bit of like everything. Cause I was like all over the place. And for years I kept thinking, I don't think I have like a shooting style. I don't think that I have like a genre of photography that I can say, like this is what I enjoy the most. I just like to take pictures. But I feel like throughout the years, I mean, it wasn't like that. I wasn't actually looking, but like the more that I shoot, the more that I realize how happy I feel when I'm actually like capturing those like special moments, just like with like probably like a couple, making sure that they look better and they actually look happy on the pictures that I'm taking.
Yeah. I feel like when you capture that like one thing and you're like, yes, like that satisfaction is just,
it's funny because like people, they were like, why do you take so many pictures? I mean, I was like, listen, in order for me to get that perfect picture with you actually showing your true self, like you're actually enjoying that moment. I mean, we had to take like 1,000 pictures just to get that one, the perfect one. I mean, but it's worth it. I mean, when I actually, sometimes I tell clients, like if I actually get like that picture within like the first 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, we got the picture. Get out. I mean, I'm just joking. I'm still, we're gonna keep shooting, but I'm like, listen, I'm happy now. So like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're like, we're set.
We're set. Like, let's go home. Like.
This has been great. What's one of the most meaningful projects that you've worked on? I know we just talked about photography, but kind of looking outside of that, what's stood out to you?
Well, actually, photography related. Like, so last year, there is this organization called One Child Matters. They're based in Colorado. So they reached out to my friend Joe, like, to go to this trip back to the Dominican Republic, which I am from. So, and somehow I ended up going with them. So cool. I did not know what to expect when I went in this mission trip, because it was kind of like going back home, but in a different situation, a different scenario. Like, I wasn't going just to see my family. I was going to these communities that I didn't know and like to interact with people and kids that I didn't know. And just being there and see how these people even though they didn't have much, they were so happy and so willing to give and to help other. So having the opportunity to photograph those people and to actually get to know some of the kids that the organization is helping, I think it was the highlight of my last year. So that project, when I actually came back home and I was actually able to go through the pictures and to do the editing of the pictures, I felt really, it felt really awesome actually that with that project, I wasn't actually planning or like looking to get good pictures. I was just like going with the flow and like getting to know these people that I didn't know, and all these kids that even though they were like probably living in like extreme poverty, but still they were like so happy and so willing to give us a smile and to keep whatever they have and just to be with us. So like definitely that mission trip was like a really special project for me. Just like the final result of like all the portraits that I took of the kids and the people from the different places that we visit. So it was a really nice project.
Yeah. And work like that is so rewarding.
Yeah.
It has so much more depth to it than just you like, while, you going out and just shooting, like you said, like city photography or street photography, like is great and you can get amazing pictures. But I feel like that sense of like just the reward that you get for yourself too, and just giving back is just such like, it's so much better and so much more rewarding for sure.
Yeah.
So what has been the most challenging project for you? I know we've talked about more the positive side of creating and, exploring photography, but what's been a challenge for you either working with the nonprofit or in things that you've done on the side?
I don't have a project that comes to mind. Probably it will be like something that I shoot a lot is like weddings. So I realized that shooting weddings is kind of like a learning process, not about the technicality, but about the flow, how the day goes. So you had to make a lot of mistakes. So the first couple of weddings that I did, I just have no idea what I was doing. I mean, I knew how to take pictures, of course, but I just didn't know how to deal with like situations like, right, oh, this is canceled. You're missing this or whatever, or like we don't have time. So I feel like weddings in general, I mean, like my first couple of weddings were like the most challenging. Like
I think I've heard from a lot of people that they are very challenging.
They were like the most like challenging projects. But eventually, you keep making mistakes, but then from those mistakes, you keep learning. So like whatever you did wrong in this wedding, you will not do that when you have the next one. So I feel like they're probably like the first 5 weddings that I did were like really challenging, where I was like, hey, I'm here. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like, hey, I'm here. So I felt like I was lost and like all over the place. Like,
yeah. Weddings are really difficult.
Yeah. And they, like, and whoever, any photographer that does wedding, like I just like give them like kudos, like high five, because it's not just a matter of like being creative and knowing how to take pictures. It's a matter of like like people skills and like interacting with people, customer service, like trying to find peace in the middle of a crazy hurricane like that day, or all the chaos. So
and it's high pressure, like they're gonna they have expectations as a couple, or
they have expectations. You have expectations because you have to actually, if you miss something, that's it. There's like no more time for you. Like if you miss a child, it's like it's gone. Like you have to keep moving. So it's crazy.
I have huge respect for people who do that, especially like full time. I'm like, the pressure, that is all for you.
Like for me, when I'm doing weddings, when I'm gonna do a wedding and people approach me, probably like the mom or somebody who's not actually the couple, I will tell them I would like to actually speak to them directly, because I feel like weddings are more like personal, and I actually need to feel like that we actually have a connection. If I don't feel like I have that connection with the couple, most likely I will tell them, I mean, I don't think we're like a right fit, so probably you will find somebody who's like better than me. But like, I think the special wedding days, like for photography, is like that's something very special and very unique. I think when you look for a photographer, you need to find somebody who actually has like a connection with you. And
absolutely.
It has to be like a connection of like energy both ways.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. So we've been talking mostly about photography. So what have you considered going full time with photography? And if so, what's kind of been holding you back from taking that step and committing to that?
I had to be honest, procrastination.
Yeah.
Procrastination. Because like the things
Kills us all.
Exactly. Because the things, I love the work that I do with the nonprofit. I love it that I have like freedom to be creative. And, and if I had the flexibility like to travel, like I'm here right now, I'm like working. So I have the flexibility to travel. And also actually I have the flexibility to keep like shooting as a freelancer. So I will say like it's a risk to go like into full-time photography. And I know you can do it. But honestly, I feel like I procrastinate a lot and it will take a lot of like dedication, like marketing, like selling yourself, like getting clients, like putting yourself out there. So being honest, it's like procrastination and being a little bit afraid of like
fearful
of the unknown, because it's just like, hey, like I'm my own boss right now. Like if I don't make money, I don't eat, I don't have money to pay rent. So it's like,
it's high risk.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, if you actually make it, I mean, it's something that if you love it, you will enjoy it. It will not feel like you're working.
Yeah.
So I was telling one of my friends last week, I was like, if I have to work every Sunday, but when you tell me that I have to work every Sunday, that means taking pictures every Sunday, I will be happy to do that for the rest of my life. Like, I don't care if I had to work all the weekends the rest of my life, as long as like I'm taking pictures and doing things that I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes it so much better. I mean, it doesn't even feel like then you're at a job. And I found that just with like academic work that I'm really focused on right now, or it's the project that I'm working with I'm actually working with a nonprofit as well. And the work that I'm doing for them and just revamping a lot of stuff on social media. I love it. And it's so enjoyable for me that, I'll look at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Like where did time go? But it's so satisfying and so much more fulfilling.
It is like sometimes sometimes a client will book me for like a 2-hour shoot, and just because I'm actually enjoying it and I'm loving the pictures, we'll go over like an hour or 2 hours, and I will tell them, don't worry. I mean, it's fine. I mean, let's just keep shooting. Like,
you're like, these shots are worth it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, for sure. So finally, what advice or techniques would you give to someone who is interested in what you do or the path that you've taken? I
will say, just start shooting and find something that you love shooting. So I remember one of my mentors, he tells me the same thing whenever like we see each other. He tells me never stop shooting. Even if you don't have a project, even if you don't have clients, just keep shooting, find something that you actually love. And if you don't find that something, just keep shooting and eventually it will come to you. I feel the more that you shoot, the more that you develop a connection with your photography, with your craft, with your camera. And it will get to the point when you don't care about the technicality, having the best camera, but just like going with the flow, being organic, and just getting those pictures that are actually capturing emotions, and those pictures that are telling something to the world, and they are like telling a story. Yeah.
And it's really an art of storytelling. And so if you just go in and practice that more and more and more, you're honing on your craft and you're bettering your skills and really just experimenting.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Yeah. So never stop shooting. Even if you don't have a client, even if you don't have a camera, just grab your phone, go out and keep shooting.
iPhones are out there nowadays.
Yeah. Like
you can make a lot. So
definitely.
Absolutely.
Like, it's all about just using what you have. So
for sure.
Definitely.
So what would you tell young photographers who are really trying to figure out their niche or figure out if they should even pursue photography? What would you tell them?
I will tell them, if you feel that you have a passion for photography, go for it. I feel when you actually do something that you really love, you get this amazing feeling of doing something that you actually love and you enjoy, and you actually get paid for it. And not only that you get paid for it, actually, you get to see your final piece of work like hanging on somebody's wall, or like print on a magazine, or somebody's going to post. Cool. I mean, it feels amazing when you actually deliver some pictures, and then you see like the person who paid for those pictures, that they use those pictures for like social media, their profile pictures. They actually order prints. I mean, it feels amazing. So you know, and I feel like if you have a passion, go for it. Like, it doesn't matter if you think, oh, there's like a million photographers out there. I feel like there is a space for everybody. Everybody is bringing something different. Everybody has a unique vision of how they want to create images. So I will definitely, even if you're struggling right now, just give it a try. Go for it. And I know that you're going to feel amazing, because I mean, you're doing something that you actually love.
Yeah. So where can people find you? What are your handles? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
All right. So you can find me on, like everybody else, on Instagram, Facebook, so TikTok, Snapchat, same handle. Is it here? Like, yeah, here and there. Okay, here. I don't know. Here, there. Yeah. Feel follow me there.
We'll find you. We got you. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down, talking with me. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Okay.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
Okay, do not use that. Okay.
Welcome to Evolve. We are so happy that you have tuned in. So excited to have you. We have Liz here today.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So just tell me about yourself, your background, and what you do right now.
So currently right now, I am a special educator at a private school in Essex Junction, Vermont. I was born and raised in Vermont. I went to high school in Milton, at Milton High School, and then I graduated from UVM this past year, COVID 2020 graduation.
Congrats.
With a degree in psychology. So I picked up this job after I interned there my junior year of college. And so now I'm back teaching full-time, basically like full-time for the school day, but then it's part-time scheduling wise, like 32 hours a week. So not necessarily full-time.
Yeah. So what are you doing right now outside of working? Tell me about your side hustle.
So what's your side hustles? So currently I'm trying to book more couple shoots, engagements, weddings. COVID makes it kind of hard, so I'm kind of glad I didn't pursue this like a little bit harder earlier, being like in the beginning of the summer, like let's do lots of weddings, because I didn't realize how long this whole masks and 6 feet and not being able to see family and friends would last. But so I've been planning a couple shoots. I have some stuff coming up. I just shot my first wedding, which is on my Instagram, and then some Facebook stuff. I still have to go through the 1,500 photos that are on my laptop.
And organize
them and then edit them and do all the details that I want to do when it comes to edits. But outside of that, I do a lot of work with horses and training horses, but photography is like my main like side hustle. Like if I was to hold 2 jobs, it would be photography and teaching, because they're both part-time gigs in my mind. I haven't fully made it a full-time career because I have a passion for people and for helping people. And so that's why I'm teaching people with special needs. But I also do love to take pictures of love of people and couples and all that kind of stuff. So I'm torn between what to pursue in terms of like a full-time career in the extended future.
And kind of looking back, I know like that's what you love shooting now. What got you into photography, and who is your influence, if you had the influences at that point when you first started?
Social media had like a huge part for me. Just seeing all the Instagram influencers in general, just having like such cute photos. And I remember like both of us trying all the time to take like these cute photos. And I was like, okay, this is like our little iPod 4s are not doing it. And there needs to come a point in which like we upgrade from this. And so I have very, very pretty friends, you included. And so I was like, you know what, let's start taking pictures of them. So I bought my first, I was like, you need a better camera with like more than 8 megapixels, maybe 12 max. And so I was like, you need to get a better camera. So back then that was around like 2016, 2017. My senior year of high school. So I bought a basic DSLR and I used that to just kind of start shooting around. I had a kit lens and then I just took my friends out wherever and we were just like, let's go downtown, whatever.
So how did you progress from, getting your first camera, starting to shoot downtown to kind of where you're at right now and really like creating a website and having that presence and really like committing to it, even though I know you still have you still work at the school that you're at now. But kind of what took you from that first, like, I'm having a camera, I want to commit to this more, to where you're at right now?
I think, honestly, and this sounds so conceited, when I found out how much of a lucrative career it could be.
Yeah.
Because, like, not only, like, people were telling me, they're like, okay, well, you know, you have talent. Obviously, you need to expand on the talent and, like, learn more. But currently in where you're at, you have a lot of potential. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, I would show pictures to friends and families and parents. And granted, I know people can just say that because they can say that to you. But
Because
I
they know
have,
you, yeah.
But I have always pressured people to be like, just tell me the truth. Like, if you don't like it, that's like not going to hurt
honest
my feelings.
criticism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
we
I
want
want you
it.
to know. I want myself to know. You know, what do you not like about this photo? What do you think is good about it? Like, what would you tweak? And so I'd ask my friends that. I'd ask like people like you who are artistic in their eye. A lot of my friends who I photographed were also like artists, illustrators, stuff like that. So they had really good eyes in terms of colors and dynamic and then contrast. So they would give me really good feedback when it comes to that. The moment I knew I was taking it more seriously definitely was when I saved up for my Canon 80D, which is what I shoot on right now, which was the middle ground between my dream camera of the 5D Mark IV.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing what I can right now. I didn't know the 6D or the 7D existed. I was like, oh, 80D, that seems like a good middle
perfect,
ground.
yeah.
Like, I was like, great, awesome. And I was like, oh man, crop frame. No. I was like, darn it. So I should have gone for the other ones, but I didn't know they existed. But there was like a big moment when I was like, oh, when people were like, you should probably ask for money for this and stop just shooting people for fun. And then I kept seeing, I made a photography page and I friended a bunch of friended whatever on social media and was just like kind of like scanning through them, and they would do their under their posts they would do these long like paragraphs of being like, you know, marketing and like what I started to be, and like it was very inspirational of like, here's how you can get to where I am as a professional wedding photographer or professional travel photographer, whatever it is. And so I was like, oh, I should probably like look into this and like maybe do it.
I should do some research.
I should do some freaking research. So I did that, and it, you know, sometimes it feels like, you know, it's definitely not going to be a career because it's just very time consuming, and I don't have a lot of time, even though I'm only working 36 hours a week. There's only 24 hours in a day, and like there's other stuff going on. But it definitely feel like I've like working on finding my niche in terms of editing style, which is helping a lot.
Yeah.
Like being able to, it's very stressful because right now I'm like nitpicky and I like sit there and I like,
Aren't we all?
will literally just do all the details, like from the eyes to the eyelashes to the eyebrows, like doesn't matter, but like none of that actually matters. Like normally to get through like a good chunk of photos, you just need to like know your presets and know like what tweaks you're going to automatically make to the photo for at a baseline at least, because I know every photo has different lighting and different settings once you like actually see it on your computer. But doing that would be really helpful. So I'm still trying to figure out like what that is, because right now I'm individually editing a lot of my photos because I'm just trying to find like what I like and what I can apply consistently over different scenarios than just like this one wedding that I shot. And we'll probably never have similar
It takes
lighting.
time to like develop that.
Yeah.
And to really like find your niche, find what works, find a style. And if you know that takes longer than you anticipate, and that's okay. Like you're experimenting, you're shooting, and you're still gaining those skills and working with those people.
Oh yeah.
So what has been the most meaningful project that you've worked on since shoot that you've done like since you've started?
I think I'd probably have to say this wedding was probably the biggest, most meaningful one.
When was this wedding?
This wedding was like 2 weeks ago, September
Oh, yes.
26th. So like I'm running on borrowed time right now to finish them. But it was nice because it was like someone actually was like willing to take a chance on me as a wedding photographer, because I keep seeing a lot of things where it's like you need to second shoot with a lot of things. And I was like,
And gain experience before. Yep.
right? And I was like, so no one's going to want to hire someone who doesn't have any experience right now. And I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So I was like very scared to put myself out there in terms of like becoming a first shooter of a wedding. And COVID kind of made it perfect because this was such an intimate, small wedding. They didn't need a second shooter. Like they didn't really want
Yeah,
one
it's
to begin
perfect
with.
for you for a
There
first
was
one too.
12 people sitting in like
Great.
the crowd.
Yeah.
So it was really, really intimate, really small, really personal, which made it really nice. The people were just super welcoming, and it was like a great, awesome first experience that has like really just kind of impacted me in knowing that like this is kind of how I want to do. It's like taught me like this is do's and don'ts. Don't throw your cell phone in the water in the middle of a shoot. don't jump into the lake to get that cell phone in the middle of a shoot. It looks really good impressionable wise, but it gets really, really cold. And so the lake's not good in September anymore.
Great. Good to know.
But yeah, that was like my big one in terms of like people. I think then before that, I have connected with a fellow photographer here locally, and he has got me out of my shell. He knows a lot of people. So he's been able to like introduce me to all these people and then shoot with them. It's been really good because it's been kind of like the difference in our shooting dynamics has really like forced me to become more confident in my own and like my own abilities.
That's so good though.
Where it like lacks in his, and same with him. So I think it's like really positive. So like the most, because I think when I think about like my most recent work, I like literally am scanning in my head over my Instagram. I'm like, okay, what was the most recent thing I posted? Because I don't really remember. But the wedding and graduations, and shooting with this guy and doing that stuff and meeting all these people has been like the best projects, because it's like learning the people dynamic, because it's kind of nerve-wracking meeting new people.
Yeah,
and then
for sure.
their expectation, and they're nervous because they don't know how to be in front of the camera, and you're nervous because you're like, can I direct you well enough so that you feel confident in the front of the camera? And it's like this vicious cycle, but you just have to kind of like push yourself to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, and just like seeing you, going from, starting and then working with people. And I've just heard too from you and just, like from my sister and I, and from what we've like done when we've kind of shot with you, is like you're great at just like giving direction for people. And I think that's really helpful, especially when you're with people who like in front of the camera are like, oh, I don't know, like this is intimidating, this is scary, like do I look good, how do I do this? And I think you're great at giving that direction, which is great, because it is intimidating for sure. So how do you educate yourself to take better pictures, and what details do you focus on to really make those pictures kind of what? And I know you said you prefer like couples and people, so how do you educate yourself and kind of work on bettering your skills?
YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Let me tell you, TikTok's new to the game, so I'm gonna like pretend like he doesn't exist. But it's been really helpful in a whole self.
It is. Yeah.
Like the short videos. So I've watched so many videos. I still have a bajillion left in my watch list in my photography to do later.
The watch later list is long.
The watch later list is so long. Just learning, kind of like I will actually like look at a photo of someone like I really like, and the picture they've taken, and then I'll have a photo of my own style, unedited, and so I'll try to match and like kind of match, not necessarily like 100%, because it's never going to be, I don't have their presets, but kind of challenge myself to meet the colors and the color schemes that I really like of this photo, which helps me learn like, okay, what are the settings that I'm like tweaking the most? What am I doing in terms of that? That's been like the biggest learning curve for me, is like looking at something and then trying to visually match it as close as possible. But then remembering also like you don't want to copy someone else, you need to have your own unique style. But by not like having their preset specifically to do that,
it forces you to
learn in the middle of it. That's for editing. For posing, I've definitely my friends used to make fun of me for not posing enough. So I was like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. So I just started like, I've looked at a bunch of Vogue magazine stuff, and, the We People, like couple, like weddings, the knot, all of that stuff to get pictures of like, what are some really, really common poses that are for couples, common poses for editorial work, common poses for senior photos, whatever it may be. It's been really helpful to use that as like and then like have that stocked in my brain. Unfortunately, there comes the factor of like, if you forget in the moment, it's like the most terrifying thing. So it's been really helpful, because like during this wedding, I was like worried that was going to happen, and so I had my assistant. I hired my roommate to come with me, and I was like, you're going to be my assistant for the day. And so she came with me, and she had a whole list of every single shot we needed to get, and then all the ones that were prioritized due to the bride and the groom's requests. So we went down through everything. And so I mostly remembered most of it, but like during it, I was like, in a panic, and me was like, are you going to forget something? And you're going to look back, and you're going to be so mad at yourself.
I remember you telling me that you were like, I think like the night or two before, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to remember everything. This is still big. Like I want to deliver. There's this pressure. And I think you did great.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. And like having your roommate come with you too, that helps keep things organized. And a little bit takes the pressure off of you. While yes, you're still the one shooting, like it's having someone else there with you.
People underestimate assistants. Like I was like, oh, I could just do this alone. But like when I was there, like it's 2 separate buildings, the bride and the groom, or 2 places, and you have to like, if you don't have a second shooter,
split
and you have to
yourself.
split yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what do I do? And if I didn't have my assistant with me to go get the ring so we could take pictures of the rings and the save the date card and everything, then I would have like been backtracked a good like 15 minutes to go chase him down to get the rings from him to come back to take the shot so that I was in time for. It's just like a very long process that you like don't need to go through if you have someone else there to just do that while you can like multitask.
for sure.
But yeah, so YouTube, love those TikToks for the 60-second, like, here are my favorite shots, here are my go-to poses. Like, those things stay in my brain way more than, like, an hour-long video I've watched on YouTube, which is good because I have a short attention span when it comes to watching videos. So I'm like,
We all are. Our attention span is becoming shorter and shorter as a culture.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. So was that wedding the most challenging project that you've done so far? Or has there been another one that kind of was as challenging or as, I don't know, anxiety ridden for you?
I think, honestly, I shot this group of, sorority girls for college for their graduation. And that was probably more nerve-wracking than the wedding because it was like 7 girls who all have really, really aesthetic Instagrams.
Oh.
So you need to make sure that the photos that they're going to post meet their aesthetic. Otherwise, like, you're going to get a bad rep because, like, they're going to tell their friends and, like, then you're like, okay, no one's going to want to. Yeah, like, you didn't fit their needs and you're like, oh my gosh. And then, like, they picked like the worst time of day. They picked like 1 p.m. and it was like May. So the high noon, like the brightest sun you could possibly pick. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do not have
It's
like,
not fully green yet.
No, yeah.
Not here.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then getting there and they were like more focused on like each other than like focusing on like what was going on in like for photos and stuff. And then, you know, like there were one girl would be like looking over here. I'm like, no, come back here. And like there'd be that one person where the photos like looks great. And then you look at that one person, you're like, oh man, I should have seen that sooner. Like I should have seen you were like tilted away or like your head wasn't in or your foot wasn't out. I think that was really hard because they had those expectations in the editing process. And then they were really sweet, but it was just kind of like, what do I do with 7 girls?
And it's tricky to manage a dynamic like that, especially when everyone has different expectations. And I know like when you did a graduation or you had another person shoot, but you did like graduation pictures and all of us kind of took turns like with you taking pictures for graduation. And it's hard because, well, of course, your opinion is the only one that really matters. You're the one graduating. But it's still like managing different people when you're not just shooting like one person or one couple and that's just your focus.
Yeah, it's a lot harder.
For sure. Yeah. So what's the one thing or multiple things that you wish you had knew before you started taking pictures? I know you kind of mentioned it with gear and camera. You wish that you maybe had bought something different, but do you have any other things looking back on that you'd say, oh, maybe I'll do differently?
Get Lightroom and Photoshop sooner than later.
Yes.
Don't wait on that one. Camera gear, but also recognizing that camera gear isn't like, you know, like your body, like focusing more on the lens. So I did that. Like when I realized afterwards that I had kind of gotten like not a low cut body, but like, you know, I should have gotten like the full crop, not the crop frame, full frame, not crop frame. And so I bought a better lens to make up for it. So I bought a Sigma 35 and that in itself was like equaling the price of the body and which like,
they're expensive.
Not fun. It's an expensive career, hobby, whatever you want it to be. But outside of that, I think things that I wish I had learned sooner was just to be more forward and out there and be more progressive. If like, because like I see that if I stop trying to find clients, trying to find people, trying to shoot, then everything else stops with it. So stops the money, stops the connection, stops the influence. And so I just have to
keep networking,
keep trying, keep shooting constantly, which is hard when you don't want to shoot like the same people over and over.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's hard to find new people.
Vermont's not the most ideal place to find all the people to shoot with and influencers. And then people like, I find like shooting here with people, I'm shooting a lot of like senior-esque photos. Feels like I'm doing constantly a senior photo shoot where I would love to do more fashion and editorial work. But because everyone here, no one models, no one knows what they're doing with that stuff because it's not New York City or LA or any big city.
You should talk to Louise.
Right. But it's just a little bit harder to find the right kind of people. And then like, definitely like pursuing more of if you're doing like an editorial shoot, you know, reaching out to companies, reaching out to other creators and influencers that are around you. Granted, I've always felt like I've been stuck because we live in Vermont and there's never really been that many creators or influencers around here. So it's like
it's growing though.
It's slowly
really
growing.
Like I feel like as a creative like community, I feel like Burlington's really growing. And it's it always has been, I think, a very creative based environment and very like sustainable, environmentally focused, obviously. But I feel like people are being much more open about it. And maybe that's just because I'm more involved in the community now. But I think there's definitely still opportunity. But it is sometimes hard when you're not in those like big metropolitan areas that seem to be just like flowing up with opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think you've done great with like what you've been given. And, I know travel's not really an opportunity right now. I mean, it is like within the US, but with COVID and everything, I think that, we're still managing all of our routines, I think in a way that I think is still like, we're still producing content. I mean, we're doing this and having you on, and you're still doing what you still enjoy doing. And I think that's good that, like it hasn't entirely stopped because of COVID, which is good. And that you did the wedding, which is great. And
Yes.
hopefully, are you wanting to do more?
Oh, yeah.
Weddings?
I have a meeting with our mutual friend tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully we'll have her hooked into it.
Get you those clients.
for
Let's go.
2021, right?
Yeah.
I know. All the weddings. I had another wedding this fall, which was supposed to be actually tomorrow, or what's today?
Friday.
The 9th? Yeah, so it's supposed to be on Sunday, and it got canceled. So that was like second wedding.
That's okay. You got more.
Out the window.
People are still gonna-
I know. People are still gonna get married
so
constantly.
it's fine.
It's cuffing season. Everyone's
Yeah, it
getting
is.
married. So it's like, okay, no big deal. And I'm not too worried about it with the part-time job. It's not like I'm financially unstable or anything. So I'm pretty much set on coasting for right now, just for the time being during COVID, and not really worrying too much about it.
Yeah. So lastly, what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to start in photography or start in this area and who's maybe hesitant or feels like they don't have the gear that they need to really produce content that they really like and are proud of? What would you say to them?
Reach out to people. It's always good to just find someone that you like that's kind of local, and then reach out to them. Because from my experience, most people around here, especially in Vermont, and as tight-knit as the creative and artistic community is, everyone's willing to share with everybody.
Yeah.
And it's their creative
Give and
energy,
take.
content, whatever it is. I literally drove to Middlebury to get a lens from a girl, and I didn't even need it, but she was like, just take it. It's fine. And she hasn't even asked me for it back. Like, it's not like an super expensive lens, but it's like her go-to lens. And she's like, yeah, just go ahead and take it. Like, no big deal. I have talked to her maybe like 3 times in my life, and she's just like, whatever. Like, I'm gonna
people
here
are really
support you. Like, I really
generous.
like your work. Like, go kill it out there. So that's probably my biggest one. And then, if it's something that's like a priority, just kind of how they say with a lot of things, if it's a priority, you'll make it happen. So
Yeah.
it's like, if you want to buy a camera, it doesn't need to be the highest and doesn't have to be the 5D Mark IV or anything, or whatever the Nikon's version of that is. But saving up and pursuing that kind of deal is like the biggest importance, because like you will only set yourself back if you don't make that your goal. If it's actually like something you want to do, but just kind of like, like, oh, okay, like I'm interested in it, but I'm not really sure what I want to do. Ask questions. And then if it's something where you like kind of level up from there and you're like, this is something I do want to pursue, like even if it's just hobby based or part-time based, like focus on that. Use your part-time job or your full-time job as a way of saving, download that app that helps you save money, and then
Download
just,
that
like,
free app now.
download that free app, yeah. And then that helps you save money, and then just like go for it in terms of making those lines connect so that you can make it more of a focus in your life versus kind of a background object type deal.
And it's always like, even if it's something that's fearful or something that you're like scared to start, I think just starting something. I know for myself, like I'll have ideas like ruminating in the back of my mind, and once I actually start it and make a plan, I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. Like, why didn't I start sooner? And so I think just making that plan, writing it down, whatever you can do to really set yourself and commit yourself to that. And like, we're in COVID, why not just like start something new? Like, we're gonna be here.
Everyone's becoming TikTok famous. Why not you do it too? Literally. Like,
Why not? Just add another one. Awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
You're
This was fun.
Thank you for having
I
me.
loved this. This was great. So where can people find you on Instagram, Facebook? How can they get in touch with you?
So my handle for Instagram, Facebook, and my future website would be Sincerely Liz Photography, all one word, no dashes.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing group and great advice too.
I know. Liz had some awesome advice just about getting started. I feel like that just keeps coming back up, just with anything. Like,
Yeah.
if you're thinking about doing something, just start. You don't need to have expensive equipment.
Yeah, and I mean, with photography, just like get out there and with anything, just it doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be high budget. Just go out there, start, experiment, like get that feedback. And so I think the advice that those photographers really gave us is so instrumental and can really be applied to not only, you know, startup photographers per se, but to all of us who really kind of want to start something new. So thank you. You're such a natural in front of the camera.
Thanks.
I know when I've talked to people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, who is this?" I'm like, "That is my friend Bella." Yeah, you're
sweet.
yeah, you're great in front of the camera. And I think, yeah, you know Liz, and we interviewed Liz, which was a great podcast. I'm a close friend with her, and
She's an awesome
it's been
human.
and it's been great to see her, like we talked about in the podcast, really evolve into the photographer that she is now and create this style. And I know you have a style in front of the camera as well. And I think it really becomes evident when you are paired with a photographer who kind of works with your style. And I think
Yes.
that when you do work with Liz, that really comes out.
Yeah, one thing I loved about working with Liz is that she gives so much direction.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I usually shoot with won't give me any direction, so I'll just do my own thing. But it was really awesome shooting with Liz. We got some really cool shots that I would have never
Yeah.
thought we could achieve because she's like, okay, stand exactly like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't used to it, but wow, they turned out so good.
Yeah, she's great with that. I've talked to her about that, and I'm like, I love, and I hope that more photographers would do that. It's really helpful when you're in front of the camera to get that reassurance, like,
Yeah.
okay, like this looks good. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's very encouraging, very vertical, which is
yeah,
nice.
we love that. We love that.
And now we're just gonna take a quick little break. We'll be right back.
See you soon.